Hey everyone, it's Ivan with kitbatcher.com, out here to tell you about the 2-day no-fail pistol class with Presscheck Consulting. Broad strokes, what is it? It is a pistol class. And over the course of 2 days, Chuck Pressberg basically shepherds you along on a journey of self-discovery, all centered around the realistic application of violence, kind of narrowed all the way down to a low probability shot and everything that comes with that, to include liability. Initially, the class starts in the classroom, going over some administrative stuff, and then jumping into all of the things: physics, anatomy, geometry, physiology, a little bit of psychology, all of these things as they relate to low probability shots and stopping a threat immediately. Not through bleeding out, insanguination, I think that's how it's pronounced, all that other stuff, but like immediately. And then kind of everything that comes with that. And after quite a bit of discussion on some of that stuff, I actually moved out to the range, initially starting 25 yards on a B8, and yeah, checking 0 on your pistol. It was not that long ago, honestly. I was just like, man, let me get all my rounds on an IPSC target, let alone the X-ring of a B8, but out there giving it my junior college try. And there was definitely something that's really cool about his class is there's an entire instructor development side to it, even though it's not advertised. And he'll stop and be like, hey, instructor development time. And for example, we spoke about the B8. Not only why it's used, because it creates a metric, and some of you are like, why am I shooting a bullseye? Like, why would I shoot a bullseye? Because it's a metric. And so if you're trying to put something in a ocular cavity or something in the X-ring, we now have a metric, right? Like, one's an analog to the other. And with the B8, rather than I missed, how far did you miss? Were you in the 8 ring? Were you out in the 5 ring? Like, where did you miss? And so being able to actually have a metric for individuals, it creates a baseline. So if you actually pay attention to what you're doing, you can, over the course of time, see improvement in the importance of that. And then the other thing was facing B8s. If you've never been to a Pressberg class, probably won't get it. If you've ever been to a Pressberg class, you will totally get it, where he's like, hey, you will reface them correctly with these B8 repair centers, and the logo is going to be here, blah, 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 like, make them perfect. Reason being is because, one, excellence in just the basics, to include this, but he came from a place where selection is ongoing and you're always competing for your job. So if you go out to the range to go test for your job, you better hope that target is set up correctly. So just excellence through all of it. From there, we continued to refine things after initially getting the 0, or maybe making adjustments on your 0. I'm looking at my target. I'm like, man, I don't even know if I can adjust this shotgun pattern. I eventually put, I think, 1 click left on it or something like that. But ended up basically working through a number of different drills on largely those B8s and moving to different yard lines to include some, we'll call it cadence for the lack of a better term, even though it's probably the wrong term, because it doesn't matter how fast that second shot comes if it misses. So you need to get 2 hits, or you now need to get 3 hits or 4 hits or 5 hits. And so basically working through those, again, really reduce target area that you're working towards and relatively compressed time frame. And just, yeah, working through a number of different drills. As we continue to work those drills, starting to get a little bit of confidence, starting to do a little bit incrementally better, looking at my B8 target down there. And then broke for lunch, which, quick aside, if you sign up for a Presscheck class and the curriculum says, hey, you're going to be here for 10 hours, you're actually going to be there for 10 hours. So you have like a 30-minute lunch and you're right back on the range. Hurry up. So right back out there. And then all that confidence I kind of built up, it's like, okay, shooting strong hand only now. In largely working through that same period of instruction, again, starting at the 25, shooting at that X-ring on the B8, and working a number of those different drills as we were slowly moving forward. And yeah, not easy, but again, the reality of the situation. When I say reality of the situation is, everyone's like, why would I ever shoot with one hand when I can shoot with two hands? Good question. Until the situation dictates that you will only shoot with one hand because your other hand gets injured, hold an infant, whatever it may be. And if you're holding a loved one in one arm and you need to make a shot, especially a low probability shot with one hand, that's probably not the time to work on that skill. I get it. A lot of people don't want to work on it because frankly, most people aren't good at it. So let's go to the range and practice the thing I'm really good at so that I can stroke my ego. Well, this class was definitely not that. So definitely worked a bunch more strong hand only. Also throughout the day, there were a couple different drills that were absolutely shot for score, as well as usually a time component. And twofold: one, get recognized if you did really good at that, and maybe feel some shame if you didn't, but also it's a metric. So you can actually look at that and know that, hey, at this yard line on this target, on this B8, for example, this is what I was able to get. And so in the future, if and when you revisit that, you can actually see marked improvement, which is a good thing as a shooter on your journey. But after wrapping up day one, I guess it was, so much in day one, showed back up that next day for day two, immediately got after it, and immediately, first thing we did on the range, which is Chuck's personal SOP, I think, is check zero. So back out there, 25 yards, slow fire, checking zero. And once we had done that, remember that whole period of instruction we had, basically with two hands and then strong hand only? It was time to switch over to other strong hand. Whew, pretty humbling, but great period of instruction on one, just best practices as far as switching your hand over safely. Keep in mind, the stuff we were doing was largely like that, for example, or shooting other strong side, for example, is in isolation. It wasn't like the drill started and you need to somehow recover your pistol because your strong hand, you no longer had use of it. So it's like, hey, here's how you safely do this, that. And then getting into it and largely shooting through that same period of instruction, which, I spent a whole year, my journey to the other strong side, but in that I was shooting two hands on the gun. This was, in worst case scenario, hey, I'm always gonna, you are until you can't, and now you need to use your other strong hand, and hopefully you got some reps with it. Then on the second half of that day, got a break from shooting other strong hand only, and actually got to do a bunch of arguably fun stuff. We spent a bunch of time shooting a mover, which is, anytime you have an opportunity to do that, is really cool. And this actually took place at a sheriff's range where they had a mover there. And getting reps on that is really cool. And then also working wide target transitions, like actual wide target transitions, not I'm on the yard line and I'm gonna shoot my target and I shoot my friend's target and I do this, but actually having to turn, track, and engage a target, which is much wider than the one you were initially engaging. And then also shooting in some steel, some Bianchi Cup stuff. Overall, honestly, just a ton of fun. And it was a kind of culmination of everything we've been doing, because there was still absolutely accuracy standard with that stuff. But I mean, who doesn't like shooting steel? It's just fun. Coming away from the 2-day no-fail pistol class, what are my thoughts? Honestly, probably the best pistol class I've taken. And there are certain classes I've taken where it's been like a watershed moment. One of which was a live tissue lab. Being exposed to something or in a manner that you've just never been exposed to before, and all of a sudden there's a lot of usable information. Another would be AMTAC shooting, Bill Rapier's integrative combatives. Like, hey, here's some different tools, techniques, things like that for interpersonal violence that is going to take your capability from here up to here with a very little input with respect to time and training. Like, amazing courses. This was one of those same things. And part of it was not only the information, but the way the information was conveyed. And yeah, just the reality of it. It's also one of those courses where it's all the things that no one wants to really do and work on. It is. It's none of the flashy stuff like, hey, we're going to work on getting a sub-second draw anywhere on this cardboard from like 3 yards or something like that. It was really like narrowing down, again, no-fail shot. The other name for this class is hostage rescue pistol or something along those lines. I mean, it's the low probability shot that everything is driving for in this class, like the underlying foundation. And I think that's really important to include the people that were there. One, most of it was honestly law enforcement, which if anyone should be taking this class, yeah, probably those guys. Because if something happens and someone's holding one of my kids in a school shootout and they're holding him as a hostage, I don't want the person that called once a year and is morbidly obese and is like, all right, like that's probably acceptable. Well, like, nope, do not want that. I want the person that knows exactly how hard they can shoot. And even if it is that morbidly obese cop, but they've been to the no-fail class and they know that they need to be 3 yards before they can make that right eye shot, I'm happy with that, because that guy will get to those 3 yards and make the appropriate shot, rather than the guy that is like, heck yeah, I shoot, bro, and they don't know how hard they shoot and takes that shot when it's outside of their capability. Bad day right there. With all of that said, who do I think this class is good for? One, absolutely any law enforcement, because people are relying on you. Not to mention any responsible armed citizen, because you are taking on a responsibility by carrying a weapon, especially if you have family. And if that low probability shot comes up, man, I hope you know how hard you shoot. With that, things this class is not. It is not a fundamentals class. You'll be out there and Chuck will be like, hey, grip. Make sure you're gripping the pistol. You're like, okay. Stance, make sure you're standing. Okay, noted. One thing that was actually some time spent on was actually trigger press and trigger control. There was actually instruction on that, but largely, again, not a fundamentals class. And I'd mentioned in the beginning, a journey of self-discovery. Because at the end of the class, you're gonna come away with, you should come away with if you're paying attention, with largely knowing how hard you shoot. Not saying that you can't move that needle, but yeah, that's what the class was about. That journey of self-discovery for you and figuring out what am I capable of at what distances with, what hand also. And if you're wondering, there were some prizes for some of those in-class competitions. I won nothing. Overall, like I said, probably one of, if not the best pistol course I've taken. And I say that also with respect to where you are on the journey. If you are just starting shooting, fundamentals, all day, every day. If you are somewhere on that journey, this would probably be a really good and potentially really humbling class, but I think really important. If it's something you're interested in, there'll be links down below and you can check it out. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadge.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.